Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Coach Andrew, and today we have a special guest, Coach Luca Mellor of Eastern University men's soccer program. He is the head coach. Luca, we want to thank you and welcome you to the Because Football podcast.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a couple years through the Westchester United uh, men's program, top amateur program in the United States. And now obviously you're coaching at the NCAA Division III level. But could you walk us back a little bit? What are some of your earliest memories and experiences of the game of football?
Yeah, so I grew up in Huddersfield, which is a town in the north of England. Football was pretty much all I knew growing up. My dad was a coach for Manchester United for the academy, so really just got exposed to the world of football at a young age. You know, growing up, obviously playing in school, playing in different
Mm-hmm.
academies. Got some time in at Manchester United, and then made my way to Bradford City. Kind of worked my way through the age groups, and then when I was 16, dropped out of school to play full time in the youth team at Bradford. They were two of probably the most formative years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Kind of dog eat dog environment, very competitive, uh, really great level of football. Played with some really great players and some really great guys I'm still in touch with today. But certainly kind of iron sharpens iron environment where,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you weren't tough, you were found out pretty quickly. So that's just a brief run through. But yeah, went through the English system of football, and then at 18 years old got recruited by the University of Pittsburgh. So I went and did my freshman year of college at Pitt. Had a fantastic time. I loved the university. I loved the city. I was able to play under Jay Vidovich. He's been a mentor for me as I begin my coaching career. He was a
Mm-hmm.
great coach, a great leader, and yeah. So after 1 year at Pittsburgh, I transferred to Villanova. I love Pittsburgh. I played plenty of games there, but
Right.
things didn't quite work out in the long run, and yeah, transferred to Villanova, which is where I spent the rest of my college years for 3 years. Played for Coach Tom Carlin. Just spoke with Tom today on the phone. Actually, he's still a great friend and mentor of mine. Definitely helped me during this transition into my first year of coaching. But yeah, finished my 3 years at Villanova. Different type of soccer. I call it soccer because it is soccer. It's different than the English
Mm-hmm.
football that I was playing, um, but still an enjoyable experience. Loved it. Loved the college game. Loved the teammates that I had and the environment that was there in the college game. Met my now wife at Villanova. She was a women's soccer player. She's a little bit better at soccer than me. So hoping if we ever have kids, they get her genetics. She was more of an attacking
There
player.
you go.
I
There
was
you
more
go.
of a defender, hard. Basically, only earned my place on the pitch by defending, but she scored all the goals for her team. So yeah, got married this summer and just started as the head coach for Eastern Men's Soccer. I've been here for the previous 3 years or the previous 2 years as an assistant coach, and this is
Right.
my first year, yeah, at the head of the program. Enjoying it so far. Definitely a lot to learn, but it's been an enjoyable ride. And yeah, I'm trying to bring all of my experience in the game into this role. And as I say, still trying to learn as I go.
Yeah, so that's quite the journey, right? A lot of different steps and paths there, and all kind of dictated by the game, right? This beautiful game that we love, whether we call it football or soccer. But I want to kind of go back more to like the earlier stages you were talking about. So you grew up in a family, very connected with the game. Your dad is coaching for Manchester United. How do you think that kind of shaped your experience, right? We all think we know the game, and then we've got a lot of, we're a lot of armchair center backs or center mids or strikers, right? Watching but being connected to like that level of football, like what do you think that did for your, whether it's your love of the game, your own development as a player, like because it's certainly unique and not the average for most people who have been involved in the game.
Well, I realized I was spoilt with the level of football that I was watching. my dad was a Man United supporter, so inevitably I was as well. And that was, the years where we had Paul Scholes and obviously Ronaldo and Rooney and Berbatov and Tevez, and just the high level of Manchester United, the kind of football at its peak. And that was just what I grew up watching as my team. And so, kind of expected that since then, and still a Manchester United fan to this day. So being a little disappointed with, recent years. But that was just because I was, introduced to football at the top level, watching England go and compete and not succeed in major tournaments, but really just focusing on watching the top level of the game. I wasn't introduced to lower league football until maybe 15, 16, when I really started to push on in the academy, and there was coaches telling me that I need to go and get first team experience in the men's game. And so, even just going to watch League Two games, the fourth division in England, the difference in level between, the fourth division and first division is massive. Obviously, athleticism plays a role, but just technical ability. There's no nice little passes. There's no, interconnecting play. It's just which team wants it more, which team has the desire to win more. And certainly because I was in Bradford City's academy, who were in, they bounce between the Championship, League One, League Two. So they're in the lower divisions of English football. The way we were taught to play was, hey, you best want to win it more than the other team. None of this fancy tiki-taka stuff. Like, get stuck in, put a tackle in, win your headers, and win a battle. And really, we were just taught that the game is a battle, and you have to earn the right to play. And you have to play with heart, and you have to play tough before you can even think about, doing a step over. You almost have to earn the right to play like that. So, that was just my introduction then, from watching high-level football as a young kid to being introduced to, let's call it, realistic football, where, it's just more like kick and run, and, who's the most physical, who wants it more. And then playing in that for a couple of years, getting some experience on loan in the 6th division and 7th division in England, and then transitioning from that back into this fancy style of play in the college game where, like keepers were playing it out from the back. And I hadn't seen a keeper play it out from the back for the past like 2 years, from 16 to 18.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it was like everyone plays out from the back. And it was took a bit of getting used to.
What are you doing? It's so close to the goal. Don't you realize that?
Yeah, exactly. But the game is just played differently over here, especially at the college level. It's just played a little differently. Certainly emphasis on fitness, on running, but that's just because the ball goes back and forth so much. There's a lot of turnovers, and the game's just played differently. That's why I call the game here soccer. It's not quite the same as football back home, but.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit, I do want to go back to that in the style of play, maybe the differences between the levels, but one thing you said in your first answer really stuck out is, like, at 16, you went into the youth team at Bradford City with the intention of, like, winning a pro contract, right? Like, of becoming a professional. And so there's not too many situations like that for an American kid. Yes, now we do have the MLS academies. We have MLS Next Pro. There is a more clear pathway. So kids in those academies, are taking on that similar type of burden and pressure. But, like, how did that switch up for you from being in the academy at United, obviously wanting to win, wanting to do well, having the dream of being a pro, to, like, oh, now I've made a life change. Now I've actually signed the dotted line, and, like, what does that do to your mentality and at such a young age, when most kids at 16, like, they're getting their driver's license or getting their first job? I was delivering pizza, like, people are flipping burgers or just serving drinks at Starbucks. It's totally different to kind of wanting to be a professional in the football world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to have, my mum and dad that always encouraged me that there was much more than football. My mum and dad are both educators, as well as my dad being a coach. So very quickly was reminded to kind of stay humble and realize that I hadn't made it yet as a player. And I was also lucky that, I had them to point me in the direction of life after the game. and was reminded that the game's not going to last forever.
Right.
Whereas, some of my teammates at the time, despite being reminded of that, they were like, yeah, that's for the other, for the other lads.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought about this a lot since I left Bradford. That environment where you have a bunch of lads between 16 and 18 that all they are doing is playing football every day, trying to outcompete each other, trying to win, as you say, a pro contract. Maybe out of the 18 players in the squad, maybe 2 or 3 get pro contracts.
Yeah.
And then the harsh statistic is, from those 2 or 3, maybe only 1 gets a renewed pro contract the following year, and the rest kind of drop out. Now I was lucky because I played in a really high level team. My age group actually had a bunch of lads that ended up signing pro contracts and kind of making a career in the game. But for the rest of them, and possibly me included, but for the rest of them, when that youth team contract finished, it was very difficult to think of what the next step might be, and this is no disrespect to the trades, but because we dropped out of school, there was no kind of further education for those lads. It was a matter of getting to coaching from ground level, or go into some kind of trade, whether it's a plumber, an electrician, joiner, carpenter. So I have a lot of old teammates that work trade jobs now, and as I say, no disrespect to that, but there was almost no pathway back into education after that youth team spell, which is why I feel really fortunate that I was able to actually find my way back into education, go and pursue a undergraduate degree, and then onwards to a master's program. And really, I think I was only lucky about that because I knew that it existed. I think other lads who played with me just weren't aware of the opportunities that existed in America, to study and play at the same time. So,
So
I'm definitely fortunate.
Yeah, it sounds like the impact of your parents was so key, and like, one, keeping you humble, of like, hey, like your dad's like seeing Man United players every day. You're like, you're not quite there, son, right? Like you've got a long way to go. And that's actually a great thing because he's keeping you like realistic in a way and not dampening your dreams. He wasn't saying, you shouldn't even give it a go at Bradford, but he's able to keep you humble. And then your parents both pointing you in the direction of education, because at 16 to kind of go all in on football, and like you're saying, when there's not really a great second pathway to develop yourself, or just, let's just say, not great but so limited, right? Such limited options. It's really wild to see like big life-changing decisions happen at 16. And I even look at that for, we talk about now the university system in the US as an undergraduate having to choose a major at like 18 or 19, right? So trying to pick your life path at such an early age when you haven't really figured things out necessarily. But the fact that then you had this kind of desire to pursue your education, you were aware of it. What do you think were some of your initial moments of clarity or initial learnings when you come over to University of Pittsburgh to play at an NCAA level, and then at Villanova? What do you remember as like the biggest impacts on you, or memories of that early time?
So the first thing that hit me was just how much more friendly the players are here, your teammates. There's much more of a family environment around the team. As I say, I played with some really great lads in England, but I wouldn't describe it as a family environment. Earlier I mentioned it was like dog eat dog. For example, when we went to train with the first team, if you left your boots out and you were late, or you were training in front of someone else, like someone might pee in your boots before your training session. And it's like, well, you've always got to watch your own back. It's a much more harsh, toughening environment, I'd say, compared to when I got to Pittsburgh. I'm the new kid in town, right? I'm arriving on day one, and you've got all these juniors and seniors in my position giving me a hug, welcoming me. What's up, man? Hey, do you need anything? You need any help? It's basically like treating me like a brother straight away.
Yeah.
which, as I say, it was completely different. I was ready to go into another hostile environment where I'm competing against my teammates, but it turned into one much more like a family. That was the biggest for me, the most stark difference, and I think it shows when I got married this summer. I think I had 28 of my Villanova teammates at the wedding, something like that.
Crazy.
Like two of them couldn't make it because they've got pro contracts, but pretty much the entire team that I graduated with came and celebrated my wedding with me. And I just don't think that would have been the same in an environment in England. So that was the biggest difference, really, from the beginning.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like, maybe the goals are different. Like you're saying, it's dog eat dog in England. You're just signing one contract for yourself. If the team has success, the benefit of that to you is maybe you get more looks, maybe you get more attention from scouts or something. Whereas in the U.S. in the university system, we are a team. We want to work together, win conference championship, national championship, and so you're starting that from day one. Um, and 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 so you had that experience as a player. How have you seen that on the other side now as a coach in your 30 years as a college coach? Um, you know, what do you kind of notice, or is there much you can do, you think, about that team camaraderie and chemistry?
Well, I'll just go back to one thing you just said there. Is one thing that was really tough for me to learn in England when I was 18, kind of playing with the first team, being around the first team for the first time. There was players that didn't necessarily want the team to succeed. And I'm talking about the first team. And I'm not going to, kind of throw people under the bus or take away from their level of professionalism. But if you just consider that a League One player only has the ceiling or the ability to play at League One, which means if his team gets promoted to the Championship, he could be out of contract in the following year. So it was actually quite sad to learn that some of the lads in the first team didn't necessarily want to get promoted. They didn't want team success because it would mean they're out of a job by the end of the year. And obviously pro contracts come and go. Lads are signing 1 year contracts, 2 year contracts, which at the time sounds like a lot, but once that year is up, if there's not a spot for you on the team, that's it. You're out of a job, right? You're unemployed. So that was just something that you said. Again, a bigger difference in the sense that the reality is not everyone is competing for success at that level. And I know it sounds ridiculous, and it was ridiculous for me to even learn it. It was a bit of a shame, really. It took some of the love out of the game for me to realize that was the case. But anyway, your question was about how me as a coach, how I can potentially influence camaraderie and like a family environment. And certainly that's been my key focus as a coach this first year, is to keep the environment positive, keep the environment that people want to be around, and not just players but coaches. I've been really lucky this year that so many different people have helped out in different ways, and I think that's just because they love the game and they love being a part of a positive environment around the game. And for me, if you're able to cultivate that kind of environment, the kind of people that you can recruit, whether it's the coaching staff or whether it's players, are going to be higher and higher quality. And obviously, just wanting to be around means that willingness to put in the effort, and all of that comes from the environment of a place that people want to be. And if that doesn't feel like a family environment, then I don't know how to encourage that, especially at the college level, especially at Division 3, where there's no scholarships based on athletic performance, and then there's obviously there's no money, there's no wages. So how do you encourage guys to come out and give everything and commit to a cause if it's not in an environment that's actually enjoyable to be around? So I think for me, environment is absolutely key.
In those, when I look at my career at any age, any level, like, I remember some of the big wins and definitely some of the big losses, right? The heartbreaks. But a lot of it is like the most lasting and sustaining aspect of a lot of that has been like the friendships. To your point, having roughly 30 guys from your college team at your wedding, right? And like the connections and relationships you're going to have with them for years to come. so much of my core friend group is guys I've been playing with since I was 12 or 13 years old. And even from my personal time at Eastern, I was there for 1 year. And the connections I built with those guys in one season, I stayed closer and more connected with than other places I spent more time. And so I think that in itself and that ability to rally behind a cause, of the team, is definitely one of the really amazing things about kind of the university system we have here in the U.S. Other than, of course, like academics, opportunity to kind of build a life and develop yourself outside of the field. But I'm curious because I know, obviously we've known each other a couple of years, and I know at different times, just like you said, you've had different feelings about your playing career at different stages. I know that has been the case with your coaching career too. So what kind of like came about that led to this head coaching role within Eastern, and that's like a big risk to take. It's a lot of pressure to feel. It's a lot to essentially feel responsible for the lives of 20, 30 young men and help to guide them. So what kind of led into your decision to kind of take that jump and take the head coach's role?
Well, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't the easiest decision. My wife, Alison, in January of this year, she said, Luca, I'm pretty glad you stepped away from college coaching because I'm not sure I love the lifestyle. I'm not sure I want to be married to a college coach. Because in January of this year, I stepped away. And then in June of this year, I got the call from the athletic director asking if I'd like to, run for the role of head coach. And it was 2 days before the wedding that I got offered the role. And so I had to tell Alison right before the wedding, hey, that college coaching.
What a gift you've given, man. Wow.
I know. I said, that coaching that you said you didn't like, I think I'm going to go and do it again. But she's been tremendously supportive.
She didn't run though.
She didn't run, yeah. Well,
she's a real one for that. Thank you, Alison.
Yeah, perhaps. But yeah, just to start from the beginning of my time here at Eastern, after I graduated from Villanova, I spent, a year working for one of my friends at Villanova, actually, who graduated with me, started his own company. And then, that was the year of COVID, so kind of bouncing around. And then after COVID, Mark Fetro, who's currently at Drexel, who's my assistant coach, my coach at Villanova when I was there, he just put me in touch with the head coach at Eastern about potentially doing a graduate assistantship. So where I could come and do my master's and kind of have my master's taken care of while I coached. And so for me, it was a way to stay in the country with my visa. It was a way to continue with my education. And then it was a way to step into the world of coaching. It wasn't something that I thought I was particularly going to go after, in terms of a career. I was more focused on my master's, which was in classical education. I had the intention of becoming a professor. And pretty much in my first semester, I have to be maybe careful what I say. I had struggles with it. I had struggles with the coaching side, but really enjoyed building relationships with the players. That was for me the best part about it, regardless of the wins and losses. Just actually building a relationship where I could maybe give back what some of my coaches had given to me, whether it was mentorship or advice or guidance. And that might have got me hooked a little bit in terms of developing relationships. So that was my first season. At the end of my first season, the head coach moved on. And so the assistant coach took up the role of head coach. And I moved up from the graduate assistant to the assistant coach. And so that was already kind of, fortunately for me, already a step up the coaching ladder. Again, that I wasn't anticipating or going after, but kind of fortunately fell into my lap and went from there and, spent more time in the game, more time recruiting, more time developing relationships with players. Enjoyed it. Still didn't think it was for me in terms of a career. Was still going to pursue a career in education after my master's. And then the head coach that took over, he also moved on. Yeah, this this May. And then I guess because I've been around the program for 2 years, as I say, fortunately, my name came up in terms of who would take over. And yeah, as you say, a little bit of pressure, but more so the opportunity to continue to develop and build relationships was what did it for me. I took the role, and I told Alison, my wife, before I took the role, that I was going to not be bothered by wins and losses. And that was much easier said than done. When the season rolled around, it came a little more difficult.
It comes down to it. Yeah.
She had to remind me of that a couple of times. She said, "Hey, remember you said you weren't going to get upset?" I said, "Yeah, you're right." Because for me, it's all about it's way more than just wins and losses. You know, the developing of relationships that could last lifetimes.
But if you're going to play, you're going to step on the field, you might as well win, right?
Well, yeah. So here's the philosophy, right? Is if you are going to do something, you're going to do it with everything. You're going to give everything to it. Otherwise, it's just not worth doing. And that means pushing ourselves to be the best that we can be. And which is it's made apparent to you whether you've reached that level or not with a final score, right? And that's why it hurts to lose, because you realize despite your effort, you're not as good as you could have been, or perhaps should have been. And that's why we love the game, because it is an instant judge or a critic in terms of how successful we've been in our endeavors. And it is difficult to lose, but hey, if there wasn't losses involved, no one would play the game. So I'm curious to what your experience was like. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but to learn more about your experience while you were at Eastern.
You're going to flip it around here. Yeah, I think, it's been a couple of years now. It's like 12, 13 years or so. Yeah, so Eastern wasn't really on my radar at first. One of my old travel coaches was like, had been an assistant there. And his brother was a coach there. And so they kind of passed my name along. And then they came out to recruit me. So I met like the current coaching staff, and they made it pretty clear, the fun thing about being junior, senior in high school, and maybe you experienced a little bit in the UK, but for kids in the States, like that period of being like courted, being recruited, yes, it's very stressful. There's a lot of uncertainty. You're wanting to perform at a high level, and you're making this decision of choosing a school to go to and how that lines up with like what you want to do for the rest of your life and your academics. And so for me, a big thing that really drew me in was just like the soccer program had always been strong. The vision of the program that they had shared with me, I really kind of identified with. And so, although on like a school level, and maybe like socially and things like that, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. For me at that time, it was just like soccer was everything. So I went for it. And I'd say it was like, you could say it was a tough season, somewhat on the field. So I think that kind of conditioned things. I mean, Eastern had been accustomed to generally making conference playoffs at least, at minimum. Sometimes winning, like making the NCAA tournament every other year pretty much, and always being strong. Our year we were like around 500, and so it was a little bit tough on the field, and I found too, making that jump personally, there was just like a lot going on for me where some aspects of the program were fantastic, especially like the relationships I built. Like I'm still in touch with 5, 6 of those guys years later, and I knew them for like a year, right? And I clicked more with them than some of the other universities or other programs that I had been a part of just in that time. But then for me, just personally, I think that wasn't really what I had been going for in terms of a school overall. And I think that the soccer season not going to my expectations created this thought in my 18-year-old mind of like having to look elsewhere and going to somewhere I felt like it was a better fit. And I think also just at that stage in my life, I was like just going through like figuring things out. And for me at the time, the decision was like, all right, just step away and look elsewhere. So I think that, what I can say even to this day is just like the relationships that are built at Eastern. Like my sister went there. She met her husband there, which is a common story. For many people, it's such a special place and a unique place too, that really kind of creates those bonds that people hope for.
We just had one of our assistant coaches get engaged to a girl that he met here on the field hockey team. There's a field hockey and men's soccer correlation.
Yep, one of my best friends, same thing. Yep, soccer and field hockey. Something in the water for sure that's been going on. So I think it's a school that is definitely not for everyone. I think whether it comes to like the aspect of the faith-based aspect, which at the time for me was like a bit of a struggle. I think that it's smaller. You're kind of like in the suburbs. It's a beautiful campus. It's safe. It's gorgeous. Like this time of year with the fall, it's you get a really nice feeling with the trees. It's a quiet neighborhood. Really nice area. You're close to a lot of things if you do have a car and want to get around too.
You're basically doing all my recruiting for me.
Yeah, so there you go. So I think, and then they've got a top-notch coaching staff these days as well. So just carrying on that tradition too. But no, I think it's definitely like you feel like I never wanted to go to a bigger school of like huge, too big. Ironically, I did eventually. But at first I wasn't sure. And I think that a great thing about Eastern of having just roughly a few thousand people is like you build relationships with professors, right? You can build relationships with your classmates. You can like really be invested in as well, which I think in some other universities you can just kind of be a face or a number and you don't really get that care, which at that stage in your life, as I was, as many of your players probably are, you're figuring things out. So you do need some guidance and mentorship. So I think for that aspect, it can be really excellent too. So, so that was kind of my take. And obviously we're talking about over a decade. So certain things change, certain don't. So what do you feel is kind of like unique as a program? This is your third college program that you've been kind of intimately connected with too. And what do you feel is kind of like makes the program and the school in general a little bit different?
Yeah, you touched on pretty much all the key points in terms of the size of the school, the community. You briefly touched on the faith component of the school. And, for us, that's something that we're trying to work through is how to integrate faith and soccer together as a program. I have a really great friend, mentor, advisor in the name of Matt Kane. He's our team chaplain. So he'll run Bible study sessions, small group sessions with the lads, regardless of their journey in their faith, whether they're spiritual, religious, basically just encouraging them to grow personally as young men. And that's all it's about for us is, can you leave this program, one, leaving the jersey in a better place than where you found it, leaving the program in a little bit better of a place, but can you also leave with some personal growth and development as a young man? Because, the young men in our program are going to go on to become professionals in their own fields. They're going to go on to become husbands and fathers and friends and colleagues. And we really just want to encourage them to be the best version of themselves. And that's going to look different. And it's going to take different amount of time for everyone in their current progress and their current journey. And certainly, you mentioned that the size of the school here means that we have more time to invest in individuals than perhaps a bigger school. And you can feel that. You can feel that from professors. You can feel it hopefully from the coaching staff. Sometimes maybe the lads want a bit more space and freedom to, go and do their own thing. And we certainly give them that. But, while they're with us, we're really trying to emphasize and encourage them to grow in their own areas and move, first of all, map out goals for themselves and a vision for their own life, and then encourage them to continue to work towards that. And, half of the time during the first year, they'll realize, hang on a minute, the vision that I thought I wanted for my life isn't anything like what I want. And that's great. It's possibly the best thing they can learn while they're here is at least they know they're not going to go in that direction anymore and kind of reassess and adjust their course. And yeah, all of those factors is hopefully what sets us apart. Listen, there's some fantastic programs out there and other programs trying to do the same thing. For us, we're not going to prioritize winning and on the field success over all of those aforementioned things, personal growth, development, family, relationship, environment that we have, and then development and faith, whatever that looks like for each individual. So there's me elevator pitch for Eastern.
Yeah, I think that generally that time frame of 18 to 22, 23 years old is a really transformative time where you're figuring a lot of things out. I know it definitely was for me, and it took me a lot of different turns to figure things out, and sometimes it was painful and difficult and challenging. But again, I look at the game and like the people I was connected with, and even after leaving Eastern, I give so much credit to Mark Wagner, who is my coach. Like, I walked into his office in the spring. We were probably like halfway through the spring season, my freshman year. I was performing really well, and I was there to tell him, Coach, I'm transferring, I'm leaving. And he just took it in stride, didn't hold it as a grudge against me or anything. He's like, all right, we'll finish out the spring season with us. Like, so he allowed me to keep training with the team. Like, many coaches might just be like, all right, see ya. Drop your training kit off at the door. Good luck. But to his credit, he let me train. He's the person who gave me my first travel team to coach. When I kind of made the change from being a player to then coaching, he gave me my first opportunity coaching his son's team, and he's always just been always available whenever I had questions, ideas, different things to bug him about. And I think he just is a good example. And there's been a legacy of people in that role who just want to kind of support guys, whether it is beneficial to the program or not. And obviously, yes, you would think that from all the personal development, from the growth, that generally it will have a positive impact on the field, which is obviously a goal too. But just those long-term, those memories I have, everything it meant to me for what he did and what my teammates have done.
Mark Wagner is someone who's been really helpful to me too. Maybe gone out of his way to help me more than he might needed to, and that just kind of shows the kind of people that are involved in this program. Even previous coaches, Jeremy Payne is another one who I think Jeremy's on this. Yeah, Jeremy's up there. Mark Wagner's on the posters over there from previous success, but not just success on the field. As I say, helping me, the new coaching staff, kind of get into the flow of coaching here. And as I say, just a testament to the kind of people that exist at Eastern.
And to kind of go to the opposite a little bit, I want to make a mention. So for people who aren't familiar with the area, like the greater Philadelphia area, there's so many really solid Division III universities and soccer programs. And so Eastern has always had a very special complex relationship with Cabrini University, which is literally across the street. If you're you're off Eagle Road, you can literally take 4 steps from one campus to another. And so for decades, there's been such an intense rivalry. I know my year we lost at their place, which was a really bitter pill to swallow. And it's always a battle, and it's always an evenly contested match. But unfortunately, Cabrini is not going to be continuing operations for this year. Could you just talk a little bit about that relationship, that rivalry, what it means, and kind of being a part of the final Eagle Road Classic?
Yeah, we love sports rivalries, right? They draw us in to watch a game, especially against fierce competitors, and just the fact that we are so close, a stone's throw away. It's such a shame that we're losing them as a rival team, because for every year it's always been a special game. There's always a bit more of a buzz around it. It's the local derby, fans come out. It gets pretty rowdy in the fans. Security is needed. And this year, we played our final match at their place. We managed to go up 1-0 at half time, but then they pulled it back in the second half, and it finished in its first ever tie. I think it's something like 60 years of a rivalry, 50 or 60 years.
Really?
Yeah, and the first ever tie this year, because there's no overtime, right? This was the first time overtime. First ever tie in 50 years. So I'm not sure how to feel about it. It would have been nice to go out with a win, but the overall record, I think Eastern had one more win than Cabrini, so we protected our overall record.
There you did. There you go.
At least we didn't tie the overall record. So it's a shame that no longer going to be competing. But it's nice to know that the overall score was Eastern was just had the winning record. So at least we protected that.
Yeah, and that's a win and a loss that that is very important. It ranks up there, but in all seriousness, yeah, it's sad to see that kind of come to an end after such a unique connection. So I guess there's new history to be made and written, and you're kind of at the helm of that for the program. So I know year one was you're kind of getting in the swing of things and on the field, maybe some more disappointments than successes, but what do you kind of look forward to for the future of the program as we go forward, and you kind of establish yourself a little bit more? Like what are some characteristics? What are some values of your program as you see it going forward in the future?
Yeah, so before we even consider success on the field, as I say, we want to encourage the lads in our program to develop a foundation for themselves from which they can build on for the rest of their life. Whether that's a religious or spiritual foundation is not so important to me. It's more important that they at least have some direction for their life. And before that can happen, I think there needs to be values of discipline, of work ethic, of integrity. Those are values that we've mentioned and talked about quite a lot in just this first few months here. And for me, I don't believe we can experience success on the field without those things. So, for example, this spring, we are going to be encouraging more discipline, whether it's academic performance, whether it's relationships, building them, keeping to promises that you've made, and then obviously work ethic in terms of a lot of fitness, a lot of building on our athletic performances. But outside of that, when we get into the game, we want to play exciting football. We want to play attacking football now. We want to win games before we want to focus on what kind of football we want to play. But as I said about the environment, I want to create an environment where people want to be around. And if you play boring, terrible football, it's not going to create an environment that people want to be around. If you go into every game, parking the bus, just going to try and get a result and scrape by, I don't think that's how the game should be played. That's not how I watched the game growing up. Watching Man United play 4-4-2, they might give up a goal on the counter because they send so many numbers forward, but Man United were always going to go and score 2 or 3 goals in a game. They weren't just going to be happy with 1-0 wins. And first it'd be nice to set the tone with 1-0 wins, but the goal is to go and compete in every game and throw everything going forward in attack that even if we lose, we can walk off the field knowing that we're giving everything for a win, and at least knowing that we've prepared leading up to the game to the best of our ability. I think that's what allows you to be satisfied with your performance.
It's one of the few controllables, right? We talk about as coaches, what can we control and not, right? It's that discipline, integrity that you're living with, and then onto the field that when you're saying that attacking football, I'm thinking of bravery, of taking risks, right? Of leaning into that, and it's a way to play on the field, but also to live in general. And I think as your story tells, like you're kind of put the work in and you just see what opportunities come your way. It's not always quite what you expect.
Yeah, as I say, we need a vision. Everyone individually needs a vision for their own life, and without it, it's not obvious which direction you're moving in, right? And I fell prey to this a little bit after I graduated from Villanova. I mentioned that I kind of worked for a friend there in between, and really kind of went through a couple of years, COVID included, where even though I had ideas about getting involved in higher education as a professor, I was really kind of working without a vision, without a goal for my life, and yeah, it didn't go very well like that until I decided, hey, there's something that I want to move towards. I mentioned it was teaching, it was being a college professor, but along the way, realized that, hey, maybe I'm going to go and try this coaching thing, and it's worked out so far, and I've enjoyed it quite a lot. And so maybe readjust my course and set a new goal for myself, and that's how goals work, right? It's like you're constantly reassessing, and even if you achieve a goal, the next job is to set another one right? And that's what we're trying to encourage from the lads, and it's what we're trying to do as a program. And yeah, I think there's so many lessons that can be transferred from playing the game of soccer into real life, and it's what we're going to try and do as a coaching staff and as a program.
I think on that note, you know, let's look at how we wrap up each of our episodes here. Following on with the title of the podcast, you could please complete the sentence for me. Because football, ...
Because football, I got married. I have friends. I have a family. I have ambition. I have drive. I have the opportunities to continue to grow in my own life. That'll do.
Beautiful. That'll do. Very good. Comprehensive answer. Agreed. I can echo a lot of that, and very thankful for kind of the, you know, I see the game often as just kind of like this vehicle. Like, I don't know what I would do without it. Fortunately, it's here. It's kind of everything else is going on around that, but it kind of drives it. And yeah, it's given both of us a lot, which we're very thankful for. Luca, thank you so much for your time, for sharing, for sharing about your background, for your vulnerability around the program. And we wish you and the Eastern University men's soccer program great success off the pitch, developing great people, and then on the pitch as well, playing brave, attacking football going forward. So thanks so much, and good luck in season 2.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to speak to you. Let's stay in touch.
Likewise. All right. Thank you all for watching so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.